and welcome to Buffy and the Art of Story. If you love the Buffyverse and you love creating stories or just taking them apart to see how they work, you're in the right place. Today, I'm talking about Angel, Season 1, Episode 19, Sanctuary, where Angel strives to help Faith, but Buffy appears seeking vengeance, or maybe to protect Angel, and the Watchers Council attempts to interfere. I am Lisa M. Lilly, author of the Awakening Supernatural thriller series, the QC Davis Mysteries, and the Writing as a Second Career books for writers. You can find all of those and back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, including those that cover Buffy the Vampire Slayer, at lisalilly.com. Along with a recap of Sanctuary, today I'll talk about bringing in exposition through genuine conflict, choosing what backstory to omit or include, character growth, especially for Wesley and Faith, and themes of redemption, empathy, and vengeance. Sanctuary aired the first time on May 2nd, 2000. It was written by Tim Minear and Joss Whedon and directed by Michael Lang. As always, there'll be no spoilers for Angel, but I may talk about the whole of Buffy from time to time, so if you have not watched the entire series, proceed with caution. Okay, let's dive into the Hellmouth. The Previously On covers the events of the last Angel episode 5x5, as well as some Buffy and Faith history and Faith and Wesley history from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It ends after Faith has tortured Wesley. She and Angel are fighting in the rain, and she begs Angel to just kill her. Sanctuary starts with Faith and Angel in that cage elevator going down to his apartment. Her face is cut and bruised. He takes her to his room, tells her to lie down on his bed, and says she'll be okay. He starts to leave. Faith says, "Angel." He turns around. Faith leaps from the bed, attacks him, and slashes his face with a knife. But a second later, there she is in bed again. It was a flash in her mind of what she wanted to do or could do, but she says only nothing. And we go to credits. A great way to show Faith's conflict over Angel, helping her over maybe still being alive. On return from the credits, Cordelia is looking for something in the office. She is very bruised. She has a black eye. Wesley comes in. He's also battered from when Faith tortured him. They look each other's injuries over. Wesley tells Cordelia he's sorry he allowed this to happen, but she corrects him. Faith allowed her elbow to collide with Cordelia's face. Wesley says at least she only got the elbow. She consoles him by saying it does look like he was tortured by a much larger woman. All of this so quickly reminds the audience, or tells them if they didn't see the previous episode, that Faith is responsible for their injuries and that she tortured Wesley. Wesley wonders where Faith is, and Cordelia says he gave her his bed. Angel comes upstairs then. He asks how Wesley is. And then he asks about donuts. Wesley is a bit sarcastic. Has Angel developed a sweet fang? Angel wants to know if Cordelia got jelly, and she says whole selection. Wesley wonders how Faith will enjoy delicious jelly-filled donuts given that she must be bound and gagged. Angel says they went through this last night, and Wesley agrees that the police can't hold a slayer, but should the woman who tortured him last night get pastries this morning? Angel responds that he doesn't really have anything else. Is he supposed to let her starve? I love that we don't see the entire discussion about the police and what to do with the slayer. We just get this reference that makes it apparent that they had the conversation, but brings it out through conflict. Wesley calls Faith a rabid animal, and Angel reminds him she is human and they are supposed to be helping people. Wesley believes in helping people but not coddling murderers. Angel points out that Wesley argued the other day to give Faith a chance, and Wesley responds that he had full feeling in his right arm then. This points to an interesting question for Wesley. Perhaps not surprisingly, he feels very differently now that Faith has tortured him. He knew that she had killed people in the past, and he was willing to see her humanity, to say that they should help her, or at least he warned Angel against killing Faith, and now he has switched positions. He tells Angel that there's evil in that girl, and it doesn't matter if she wants to change. She will kill again, and Wesley leaves. This may offer some insight into Wesley's changed position. He seems to be saying he does not believe that Faith can change, where before he did. This has convinced him. He has seen how far she has gone, or that it is more important to protect others from Faith than to help Faith, something that we'll see echoed again later in the episode. After Wesley leaves, Angel says he'll come around, and Cordelia agrees, sure, people are always a little funny after being tortured. Well, Angel would know. And somewhere in this scene, we had a story spark, or the inciting incident that gets the main plot rolling. Really, the whole scene does that once Angel comes upstairs and he and Wesley have this confrontation about whether Faith is worth helping, because the episode is about Angel trying to not so much save Faith, but convince Faith to save herself. He was already going to do this, but these moments with Wesley are when we as the audience find that out and find out for sure he will do this even in the face of opposition from his two teammates, because now Cordelia hands Angel some documents to sign, and he does that while they talk. She agrees they have to help Faith. And after he hands over the signed documents, it hits him those were checks made out to Cordelia. And she tells him, yes, it's paid vacation. She is not sticking around while Faith is roaming loose downstairs with all the weapons. A really good point about maybe not leaving the Rogue Slayer with the weapons. Oh, and she points out a sugar high might not be a great idea, and she leaves as well. This is also a good way to get Cordelia out of the episode so that we don't have too many characters around. I completely buy that no way is she sticking around. The scene cuts to the apartment where Faith tortured Wesley. Detectives in plain clothes are sifting through evidence. Kate is one of them. And another detective asks what she's doing, and she responds, I'm a detective. I'm detecting. They have a warrant from Sunnydale for Faith and a photo of her. It turns out the guy who lives in the apartment identified her. The other detective points out that this is not Kate's case. He thinks she's there because she heard a rumor that the girl has some supernatural powers. And he says everyone knows Kate has gone all Scully, an X-Files reference, and Kate tells him Scully is the skeptic, Mulder is the believer. And the guy says, Scully's the chick, right? Kate points out, but not the one who wants to believe. Mulder's the believer. When he pushes her, Kate says, yes, she already believes that's the problem. At Angel's apartment, Faith is standing between the living room and kitchen, shoulder against the wall, looking stricken. Angel tells her he has donuts, and he tries to soothe her and assure her he wants to help. But there are a few things she has to do. First, give him the knife. The camera pans down, and we see she is holding a giant carving knife. There are a couple tense moments, but she hands it over. Angel tells her she should rest, and she says she's been asleep 8 months. He can rest. Another example of a small bit of exposition coming in through conflict. For those who did not watch Buffy, it is a hint at least that she was in a coma that long. We don't know all the details, but we don't need to. If nothing else, we know there is trauma in Faith's past, that she was out for 8 months, and so that has probably added to her state of mind. At Wolfram and Hart, Lila tells Lindsay that they found Faith, and Angel is not dead, other than technically, since he's a vampire, and Faith is Angel's house guest. They're quite frustrated having sent Faith to kill him. Another great way to get that in, that Faith was meant to assassinate Angel. Lila says they knew it wouldn't be easy dealing with Angel. He can't be bought, and apparently he can't be killed even by a slayer. She adds that rumor has it he used to date one. And I had wondered in 5x5 whether they knew anything about Buffy. So it seems they don't know details, just rumors. They talk about what to do, the camera pans, and we see the third lawyer, Lee, who is very beat up and has a cervical collar on, and he says, kill her. We could see that as the first major plot turn. It does come from outside Angel and from outside Faith. But I see the first major turn as something a little more personal that will happen in the next scene. Faith is in the apartment alone, and she has a flashback to when she killed the deputy mayor in Buffy. She has blood on her hands in the flashback, and she packs her bag ready to leave. Angel tries to persuade her to stay. She demands to know why he's being so nice to her and tells him to stop. She also asks if she's his prisoner. He says no, so she says she's free, and he tells her she's not a prisoner, but she's not free.
The door's open. Where are you gonna go? Back out in that darkness? I once told you that you didn't have to go out in that darkness. Remember? That it was your choice. Well, you chose. You thought that you could just touch it. That you'd be okay. 5x5, right, Faith? But it swallowed you whole. So tell me, how'd you like it?
Help me.
Yeah.
As you heard, Faith punches him at the end of his speech, but she does ask for help. I see this as that first major plot turn. It's from outside Angel. Faith is asking for his help. Last night, she wanted him to just kill her. I take it that she did not believe she could be helped, and now she is asking. Then there is another twist in the story. Wesley plays darts in a bar. He's very good at it. And the 3 Watcher goons that were in the Buffy episodes with Faith and Buffy approach him. And we go to commercial. On return, they all sit in a booth with drinks, commenting on Wesley settling in California. He talks about what he likes, and the weather is dry. One of the goons says council wouldn't cough up the dough for a flight home. They're miserly, and Wesley agrees. One of the other Watchers says the council is willing to admit when it made a mistake, and how would Wesley like to come home to England and be reinstated as Watcher? They tell him no one blames him for the nasty business back in Sunnydale. Wesley rather thought they did, given that they sacked him. This is an example of how much backstory to bring in or not. If you are a viewer who hasn't watched Buffy, and there were people who started with Angel and didn't watch Buffy till later or never watched it, you don't need to know all the details. You don't need to know that Faith went rogue and was fighting against them, that Buffy quit the council, that Wesley tried to bring Faith in and she escaped, and that just made things worse. And you'll notice in this episode, while there are references, we'll see, to what happened recently between Faith and Buffy in Sunnydale, we don't get all the details specifically. We don't find out that Faith managed to make it so they switched bodies. Of course, Wesley and these Watcher goons don't know that, but they do know about everything that happened in season 3 of Buffy. But we really don't need that. As Angel Watchers, it's enough to know that there was something to do with Faith and Sunnydale, that Wesley used to be a Watcher, and that he got fired for it. Now they show Wesley Faith's photo, say they know where she is and they know he has access to her. And Wesley right away says no. They scoff at him for having loyalty to a vampire. But one of them, who seems a little bit more rational and reasonable, takes a more measured tone and points out that a rogue slayer is too dangerous to allow free, which fits with Wesley's earlier view. Wesley now asks why these 3 came to him. They're the best, the council's elite. And then he says, she cleaned your clocks, didn't she? And they just tell him she must be stopped. Another quick bit of exposition. We know that these 3 guys already tried and failed. And what we don't find out, because the audience of Angel doesn't need to know, is that it was actually Buffy in Faith's body who fought off these 3 guys and got away. And not only would it slow the story if we tried to work that in, and it would be awkward because neither the council guys nor Wesley know this, only Buffy knows. Faith doesn't even know. She wasn't there. It would undercut a bit the threat Faith poses. In the next scene, Faith is at the kitchen counter. She asks how this works. Angel tells her there's no simple answer. Just because she decided to change doesn't mean the world is ready for her to do that. No matter how much she suffers, no matter how many good deeds she does, she may never balance the cosmic scale. But Faith just meant, how does the microwave work, so she could make popcorn. He shows her, and she says to tell Cordelia she'll pay her back for the popcorn. But it's Wesley's. And Faith says, maybe we don't mention it. Angel counters, maybe we do. She has to talk to Wesley. Faith says, are you saying I got to apologize? How do you say, gee, really sorry that I tortured you nearly to death? And Angel says, well, first I think I'd leave off the G. A nice use of humor, which is woven in throughout this episode in a very low-key way from both Angel, Faith, and Wesley as well. And it does not detract from the dark feel of the episode, from the seriousness, but it does make these characters so engaging. Faith is really troubled. What if she can't face Wesley? Some things you can't take back, and she thinks she might not make it through this. She hates that it hurts so much, and Angel tells her it's supposed to. All that pain she caused, all that suffering is coming back on her, and if she deals with it, maybe she can be free. Faith half laughs and says she has to be the first Slayer to be sponsored by a vampire. He says he has some experience with that, and Faith now looks so guilty and says, Buffy, how can she make it right? Angel tells her it's not about Buffy. And Faith says, all my life, there was only one person that tried to be my friend, went out of her way when I had no right or reason to expect her to, and I screwed her, not to mention her boyfriend, only him literally. Angel says, Faith, you and I never actually, and Faith says, no, not you, the new one. Oh my God, Angel, I'm so sorry. And Angel says, no, there, you can say it. Good, that's good. Good. More exposition through a very strong conflict. We find out that Faith slept with Buffy's boyfriend and that Angel didn't know Buffy had a new boyfriend. This is around the midpoint of the episode. There is certainly an emotional reversal for Angel here. We can see how hard it hits him that Buffy has a new boyfriend, but there is a stronger reversal to come. And in the meantime, plenty of plot developments keeping this moving along. The three lawyers, Lindsay, Lee, and Lila, talk to an assassin who is off screen at first. They're discussing that Faith is tougher than she looks. Lila specifies there'll be nothing on paper. It's strictly a handshake deal. And that's when the camera pans back and we see they are talking to a demon who does not have arms. And Lindsay says not that they need to have hands for the deal. And Lila apologizes for being speciesist. In the bar, the goons give Wesley a syringe for the Slayer. It is to knock Faith out. He's surprised that they're planning to take her alive. They claim they'll rehabilitate her back in England. This is a midpoint commitment for Wesley, who has a strong subplot in this episode about how he will both deal with his feelings about Faith and help Angel or the council, we don't know which, deal with Faith. It is a strong moment for him. And then he makes a commitment that we can see as an audience right now, because his one condition on helping is that no harm will come to Angel. There's a bit of arguing over that because Angel's a vampire, and Wesley said he has done more good working with Angel than he ever did with the council, and Angel has a soul. The more reasonable sounding Watcher Goon says they have no quarrel with a vampire. They'll make every effort. Wesley said that's not good enough. No harm must come to Angel. He needs their word. At Angel's, Faith watches TV, eating popcorn. The demon slithers in unnoticed. It's up on the ceiling. If you love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the mix of ordinary life, ancient evil, and people who don't ask to be heroes, you might enjoy my Awakening supernatural thriller series. It begins with The Awakening, where an ordinary young woman stumbles into a hidden supernatural world that's been shaping human lives for centuries. She's not trained for this. She doesn't have a watcher, and once she's in, walking away isn't an option. Across 4 books, the series blends mystery, suspense, and the supernatural with a strong emotional core. These stories are about power, secrets, and the cost of survival when protecting the ones you love means making choices you can't take back. If you like gripping stories that treat the supernatural elements seriously and focus on character, consequences, and escalating danger, very much in the spirit of Buffy, this series is for you. All 4 books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. There's also an ebook box set if you want to binge the whole series. Click the link in the show notes, search for The Awakening, the complete supernatural thriller series by Lisa M. Lilly on Amazon or your favorite ebook retailer, or find all the books on my author website, lisalilly.com. That's LISALLY.com. Angel is in the shower, but he pops out. There's steam around him to ask her if she's okay. She says it was touch and go for those 4 seconds he left her alone. Then she sees her own face on TV and knocks over a glass. It breaks. Angel, half dressed, comes in. And this is where I see the plot-related reversal, midpoint reversal for both Faith and Angel. Kate on TV gives a press conference about looking for Faith, a wanted murderer. Angel tells Faith nothing has changed, she's safe. And of course, at that moment, the demon attacks. A reversal for Angel, who has kept reassuring Faith she is safe. He's mostly meant emotionally, but he means physically as well, and clearly she is not. It's a pretty challenging fight. This demon is not easy to kill. Faith finally does kill it with a knife, and she sees blood on her hands and on the knife, very much like in that flashback she had of killing the deputy mayor, and she says no. And she's shaking and she drops the knife. Angel holds her, and then another major reversal for Angel as he sits with Faith, holding her, telling her it will be all right. Buffy walks down the stairs into his place and stares at him in shock, and we go to commercial. Angel stands, he approaches Buffy, and he is buttoning up his shirt because, remember, he was in the shower. And Buffy says, "What? How? What are you doing?" Angel says, "We were attacked." Buffy is really taken aback, again, just by the way he talks about himself and Faith as a unit. She says, "You and Faith." Buffy then tells him Giles heard Faith tried to kill him. He agrees it's true. And she says, "So you decided to punish her with a severe cuddling?" He asks if she is there to punish, and she says she came because she was worried about him. Faith has been still sitting on the couch, and she says, "Buffy." Buffy walks over to her, and she is kind of standing over her and says Faith didn't think Buffy could find her, did she? And Angel says Faith needs help. Buffy asks if he has any idea what Faith did to her, and he says yes, and she asks if he cares. Really interesting exchange because he has an idea. He knows Faith slept with Riley, but he doesn't know the extent of it. He doesn't know about the body switch, that Buffy could have ended up permanently stuck in Faith's body. Now, would it matter? I don't think so, given where Angel is coming from. He would certainly care. Maybe he would express more concern here for Buffy, but I think it would be pretty much the same. So again, those are very important plot developments in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but not needed here because the result would be the same. Buffy feels betrayed that Angel is here holding Faith and reassuring her and telling Buffy that Faith needs a chance to change. And Buffy says, "No chance, jail." Faith tries to say something else. Buffy tells her if she apologizes, Buffy will beat her to death, and Faith says, "Go ahead." Angel tells Faith to go upstairs. Buffy doesn't want to let Faith out of her sight. Faith starts to leave. Buffy moves to stop her. Angel tries to pull Buffy back, and Buffy punches him. Angel punches back, and they are both shocked. He says, "Sorry." And Faith goes upstairs. Wesley is there and asks where Angel is. So now we don't know, is Wesley going to use the syringe on Faith? The scene cuts to Lindsay pacing in a conference room. Lee is sitting there, and Lila enters and says, "Strike two." Lee gives kind of a funny speech about how the second assassin was sent to kill the first assassin who didn't assassinate anybody. Lindsay says they're lawyers. It was a mistake to work outside the law. We go back to Angel, who tells Buffy that Faith won't run. And Buffy says, of course not, with him as her brave knight. She wants to know how Faith got to him. The pouty lips, the heaving bosom. Did she cry? And she's upset that Angel hit her. And he tells her not to go out schoolyard, but she hit him first. And she is a little stronger than he is. She's upset that he did it because of Faith, and he tells her she was close to making Faith run. And he says that trying to kill him was a cry for help. Buffy says a cry for help is when you say help in a loud voice. Angel tells her she can't know what Faith's going through. She agrees. She's sorry. She can't be in their club. She never murdered anyone. I find Buffy more sympathetic seeing her through the lens of having watched Angel season 1. I'm not sure exactly why that is. When I watched this as part of looking at season 4 of Buffy, I was so immersed in the journey I thought Buffy had gone through being in Faith's body that when she came to Angel, it felt off to me that she was this intense and this confrontational, talking about punishing Faith and revenge, which she'll talk about later. But oddly, it works much better for me here because I see it more both how Angel is feeling about all of this with all his feelings about Buffy having a new boyfriend he didn't know about, his anger, his having lived through I Will Remember You, which Buffy does not remember, that it's so much more recent to him that he and Buffy were close, but also Buffy coming in on this scene, it hits me more how devastating it would be because Faith and Angel are very close now. And from her eyes, it looks a lot like enemies when Faith did go to Angel after she killed a demon with blood on her hands and try to get him to supposedly help her, but she was really coming on to him. And Angel, Buffy, and Giles worked together and fooled Faith into thinking Angel had turned. So to Buffy, this seems like the same thing playing out, and it is a very similar scene, but we know it is genuine. Faith is not playing Angel. Angel is desperately trying to help her. Being more immersed in that helps me see more how devastating it would be to Buffy to walk in on this without that context and just see it as Faith is manipulating Angel. After Buffy says that about not being able to be in their club, Wesley and Faith run downstairs. Wesley hurriedly fills them in about the Watcher Goon's plan and says he pretended he was helping. Buffy immediately says she knows these guys, they're killers, and she is now more on their side, Faith and Angel, because despite that she talked about punishing Faith, she clearly does not think it's right that they would send killers after Faith. And she knows this firsthand. If we've watched Buffy, we know because they captured Buffy as Faith. But we don't need to know that as Angel watchers. We just need to know that Buffy, yes, she knows how bad these guys are and she's not on board with it. Faith has disappeared. Angel says she must have gone to the roof. Wesley wants Angel to help him fight off the Watcher Goons and says Buffy can protect Faith. Angel is not sure that's Buffy's agenda, but ultimately agrees. Buffy heads up to the roof. Wesley tells Angel he is not doing this for Faith, which Angel understands. Wesley says it's because he trusts Angel more than 3 gun-toting maniacs at any rate. Kate is skeptical when Lindsay approaches her at the police station, but he tells her they have a common enemy, showing her a photo of Angel. He goes on about how the law cannot deal with creatures like Angel or the ones who killed her father, and in his view, she was justified in any extra legal means she took. Then he tells her the young woman she's looking for is with Angel. Around here is where we usually see the last major plot turn in a story. It should come out of the midpoint and spin the story again. And here it could be Faith heading up to the rooftop. I think it is that in conjunction with knowing the Watcher Goons are on the way. So the rest of the episode is largely dealing with that and with Kate. So that was a turn as well, a significant one. Buffy tells Faith she is not going to let her run. Faith asks if Buffy's going to throw her off the roof again. And Buffy asks why shouldn't she? Faith tells Buffy there's nothing she can do for her. She cannot make it right. And I feel like that's a big step for Faith. She talked about some things can't be fixed, and she is faced with one of those. And I believe this whole conversation factors into her decision later. Buffy responds, so what is Faith going to do? Take off, leave them to clean up her mess again? Buffy doesn't buy that Faith will truly change. She says Faith will do redemption until she gets bored with the whole guilt thing. And then she'll start killing again. And Faith says, Angel said there was no way you were going to give me a chance. Buffy responds, I gave you every chance. I tried so hard to help you and you spat on me. My life was just something for you to play with. Angel, Riley, anything that you could take from me, you took. I've lost battles before, but nobody else has ever made me a victim. I love this whole exchange. It is genuine conflict. Faith is correct that it's almost impossible for Buffy to give her a chance. She cannot fix this. Angel was right. And from her perspective, she's just got nothing for Buffy. And Buffy is correct that probably if Faith took off now, she might change for a while, and then she probably would go back to killing. And we saw this when Faith left Sunnydale after the 2 body switch episodes. It seemed like she might have changed, that her experience being Buffy might have changed something for her, but she ultimately ended up far worse off. After Buffy says that about no one's made her a victim, Faith tells Buffy that Buffy can't stand that. She's all about control, and she has no idea what it's like on the other side, where nothing's in control, nothing makes sense, nothing you do means anything. Also extremely genuine and showing that difference in their experience. And Faith has actually walked in Buffy's shoes. And she's not wrong. Yes, Buffy has some really hard things to face, but she has this stability around her that Faith has never had. She has Joyce. She has friends. She has Giles. Yes, her parents divorced, but she has had this continuity in her life. She has always had a safe place to live, for instance. We get the sense that Faith has had none of that. Buffy tells her to shut up, and Faith says, "Tell me how to make it better." And she seems really genuine. Now the Watcher goon, who seemed like the more reasonable one, bursts onto the roof, firing a machine gun. And Buffy immediately is now a team with Faith. It's that common enemy idea we saw Lindsay express. The two exchange a look. Buffy says she thinks they can make it. Another Watcher goon goes down the stairs into Angel's apartment and fires the machine gun toward Angel. Wesley hides around the corner. Angel goes the other direction. They're both out of sight. Wesley yells out that he didn't give the signal. He was supposed to let them know when Faith was out and it was safe to come in and get her. And he says, oh, they don't care. They were never going to honor the agreement. The Watcher goon says vampire and raises his crossbow and aims for where he thinks Angel is. Somewhere around here, the climax starts. These last scenes all kind of flow together, so it's hard to put a specific point where the climax itself begins. That's where our opposing forces have their final confrontation. And we have a lot of confrontations here. We have Buffy and Faith, at least momentarily, united against the Watcher goons. And we have Wesley and Angel, likewise, fighting them. Buffy tells Faith she thinks they can make it to the other building. So they're going to leap from one roof to the other. They run together, but as they reach the edge of the roof, a helicopter rises in front of them, cutting off the escape. And we get a great shot of them together staring at it, and then as one, they run. In the apartment, Wesley calls out and tries to reason with the goon on the roof. Buffy tells Faith that Buffy has to take the guy with the machine gun on the roof out. Faith should stay there. They're a little bit shielded now, and Faith says, okay. Downstairs, the goon asks if Wesley's oath means nothing to him, and Wesley says it does, and he swore to protect the innocent. He tells Angel to go to the roof. Angel runs. The goon is shocked and fires. Buffy is fighting on the roof. Wesley throws the syringe like a dart, hits the goon in the neck, and Wesley says 180, the dart points he would have gotten. Then, as the goon sways, clearly already out of it, Wesley punches him and says that's for calling him a ponce earlier. On the roof, Buffy is fighting. The goon up there goes down, but Buffy turns to stare at the helicopter. There's a bright light shining down. She is standing next to an elevated roof skylight. An Angel bursts through it and leaps from there up to the helicopter. So this is Angel's show. Angel is our protagonist, so he needs to take a larger part In the final confrontation, Wesley mostly dispatched with the goon downstairs, and that was Wesley's subplot resolving. He prevailed, and now Angel leaps onto the legs of the helicopter. He grabs the machine gun the goon is holding and yanks him down, uses it to throw the goon down onto either the roof or the ground, I'm not sure. Then he climbs up and in vamp face orders the pilot to take the copter down. On the roof, Buffy realizes that Faith has disappeared. Kate and police cars with sirens arrive. Kate demands to know where Faith is. Angel won't talk, and she has him arrested for aiding and abetting. The climax is still continuing because while we resolve the physical fight with the Watchers, the main plot is about, can Angel get Faith to save herself? And right now, after the Watchers Council pushed against him and Buffy pushed against him, now Kate is pushing against him very hard, because when Wesley and Buffy arrive at the station, Kate is leading Angel toward a cell block and tells him she'll give him a cell with a view of the sunrise. Buffy argues that'll kill him, and Kate says, "Who are you?" Angel says she's nobody, which is so interesting. I don't know if Buffy caught that. It might have something to do with their fight in a few moments. But from Angel's perspective, this really is not about Buffy, as he said to Faith earlier. Buffy now argues with Angel she won't let him take the fall for Faith, but Angel looks past her and says, "Buffy." All of them are shocked to see Faith sitting in a chair with a police officer. Faith stands up, turns around. Kate approaches. They're face to face, and Faith says, "I'd like to make a confession." That is the resolution of the climax. Angel has prevailed because Faith is taking this step to save herself. And Faith, who has a very strong subplot here, has also prevailed. She is making that choice. Now we're in the falling action where we tie up loose ends, resolve subplots, and here that is largely Buffy and Angel. Buffy has her own subplot here, which is coming to LA, both probably to check on Angel and to pursue Faith. Now, Faith has made an unexpected choice. I think Buffy is probably glad about that, but it's not really filtering in because of how she feels about Angel. She's upset he didn't tell her about Faith being in LA. Angel didn't think it was her business. And then he says he needed more time with Faith. Buffy says, "Do you have any idea what it was like for me to see you with her, that you went behind my back?" And Angel says, "Buffy, this wasn't about you. This was about saving somebody's soul. That's what I do here, and you're not part of it. That was your idea. Remember, we stay away from each other." I do think Angel's being a little unfair here. They both decided this. Angel decided it when he chose to move to LA without even discussing it with Buffy. He just told her he was leaving. He broke up with her. Then they had some back and forth. And Buffy was the last one to say we should stay away from each other. But I get why Angel feels this way, because this is so much harder for him than Buffy realizes because of "I will remember you." Buffy now says, "I came here because you were in danger." And he tells her, "I'm in danger every day. You came here because of Faith. You were looking for vengeance." And Buffy says, "I have a right to it." Angel responds, "Not in my city." I'm not entirely sure I buy that Buffy would say I have a right to vengeance, despite that I am more in sympathy with how Buffy is portrayed in this episode, having watched all of Angel. But maybe she would. She is really angry. Things with her and Faith are extremely difficult. And it is clear she wasn't saying she came there to kill Faith. She wanted Faith to be in jail, and now Faith is. But maybe she did want to have a knockdown, drag-out fight with Faith and get out some of that anger and aggression. Buffy once said that fighting was comfort food for slayers, and maybe there is an element of that. But Angel is clear that is not okay. She tells him she has someone she loves now, someone new in her life. It's not what she and Angel had. It's different because she trusts him, the new boyfriend. She knows him. And Angel says, great, she moved on, but he can't. He's not allowed, and she doesn't know him anymore, so don't come with her great new life and expect him to do things her way. Go home. She heads out saying, see, Faith wins again. If you would like more Buffy the Vampire Slayer content, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly. That's Lisa, M as in Marie, Lilly. The 2 recent episodes I posted were The Cost to Buffy, the steadfast hero, examining the type of protagonist who does not go through a major change arc in every story, but nonetheless does have an arc. And part 1 of a series, Bad Dads in the Buffyverse, suggested by patron Melissa. Thank you so much, Melissa, for your thoughts on that. And in part 1, I talk about Hank Summers as a dad. There are something like 60 episodes on there, almost entirely about Buffy. A couple that deal with Angel as well. So if you would like to get access to those, you can become a paid member of the Patreon community at patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly. You will also get an early release of each regular podcast episode a couple days early, and it is ad-free. So that is another patron benefit. After she leaves, Angel slams his hands against a wall. Wesley asks, does he want to go after Buffy? Angel says yes, but he stays right there. Wesley tells him he did the right thing, and Angel says, yelling at Buffy? Wesley says, no, the other thing, meaning Faith. Angel says, Faith did it. And they continue to talk. As we see Faith sitting in a cell, Wesley hopes Faith is strong enough. So a lot of growth for Wesley here, and he adds that peace is not an easy thing to find. Angel says she has a chance, and we end on that shot of Faith. She's very still, and she does look like she might be feeling some peace. As you can tell, this plot and the subplots really worked well for me. The main one is Angel striving to help Faith, but it is woven in with Faith's struggles to deal with her guilt and with whether she can be redeemed, whether she wants to be, whether she's willing to go through all that pain. And while sometimes having such a strong subplot as Faith's that could almost be its own plot can be tricky. It can make an episode too complicated. It can raise questions of who is the protagonist. But here, those 2 plots are so well woven together. Many of the same plot turns apply to both, and both are very strong characters. It works so well. It keeps the episode moving quickly. And then we have the subplots, Wesley's subplot. And this works because it too directly affects those main plots. It adds obstacles and complications for Angel. You could have the Faith Angel story without the Watcher goons, but you would lose a lot of the action. It would be a lot more of just talking and then a confrontation with Kate. So this adds to the action without cluttering the main plot. And that's partly because the writers did such a good job of not bringing in every single detail, not trying to fill us in on everything from Sunnydale and Faith Buffy in the past, but giving just enough to make these conflicts, these plots and subplots meaningful. And then we have the subplot of Buffy, which is both Angel's kind of minor subplot as he deals with his emotions over learning what he does about Buffy having someone new and dealing with Buffy's feelings of betrayal, her anger. She is another obstacle, another complication for his attempts to help Faith. And then there is Buffy's subplot. So intertwined with Angel's, adding more layers without overcluttering it again. So well put together. I'm never lost. I'm never overloaded. And yet there's always something going on, and everything is meaningful to each character and has a strong effect on them. These plots and subplots are strong as well because they represent value conflicts. Wesley and Buffy have similar values here. One is protecting others. For all that Buffy talks about revenge or punishing Faith, she's deeply concerned that Faith will go out and keep doing this. And remember, Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a show is almost entirely about protection. Buffy's mission is to protect humans from vampires and demons, and in this case, from a rogue slayer. She is also personally motivated by her anger, but the protection is a big deal. When she says that to Faith, like, you're just going to go off and do this again, very similar to Wesley's point. He believes it is far too dangerous to leave her out there. You could say the Watchers Council has that view as well. They're talking about how dangerous a rogue slayer is, but it seems clear they were never going to try to take Faith in, rehabilitate her. They don't see her as human anymore. They don't care that Angel has a soul or that he helps people. So their primary goal is not protection of humanity. It most likely is protection of the council. And they are anti-demon no matter what that demon is doing or whether that vampire has a soul. In some ways, Buffy's fears probably motivate Faith. When Buffy is saying, you're going to get tired of redemption and you're going to go back to your old ways, may have a lot to do with Faith's decision to turn herself in, along with everything Angel has said. More everything Angel has said, but Buffy's comment is icing on the cake and articulates Faith's fears. So in some ways, Faith has that value. She thinks the world should be protected from her, but she also does not want to go through all this pain. She has been in so much pain for so long and is not seeing a way out. And at the end, perhaps she has found it. Angel's highest value throughout is redemption, not even necessarily atonement. He talks with Faith about atonement and how it might not be possible. And maybe not exactly even redemption, but to try for redemption, to aim for it, to have that as your highest goal. And for him, that trumps protection. He is saying, I save souls. This is what I'm here for. Sure, he is also protecting humans, but his higher value is saving souls. And that puts him in conflict with Buffy. Many times they are going to align, but in this instance, they don't. And that is such a strong conflict. And Wesley and Angel do not align. Because of that, ultimately, they get back into alignment in terms of actions, but not because Wesley has really changed his mind about Faith himself, but he has chosen to trust that Angel is right. At the end, I believe Wesley has grown a bit, and I believe he's genuine when he says that he hopes Faith can do this. That is why these are such strong conflicts. It takes a lot to change values versus circumstances. So if you can have a values conflict for your characters, that is really going to drive your story. I have already talked a bit about themes. We have the themes of redemption. Is it possible? Should you strive for it? Can you atone? About change, how much and whether people can change. There are also themes of how to deal with conflicts when the law cannot help. The law helps here because Faith is willing to let it, but it seems unlikely that Kate or any prison system could hold Faith if she was not agreeing to it. Nonetheless, that it is there helps. This is a deterrent to Faith to going out and becoming what she was again. It makes it harder for her. But this episode does raise questions about that. And there are themes of common enemies. Lindsay and Kate, she does ultimately act on the information he gives her. Buffy and Faith unite when the Watcher's goons come after Faith. Maybe unite is a strong word, but Buffy shifts significantly. She is still angry at Faith, but she is going to try to protect her. She is not there to punish her anymore. She is there to protect her. Though we see both those desires are warring within her, even at the end, because she still talks about vengeance. But she did act to protect Faith. She did put herself on the line for it, which is growth for Buffy, and goes to that theme of how a common enemy can unite. And that is also, if you are writing a story where you have enemies, that is one way to bring them together, a larger force that threatens them both. And faith in human beings, which Angel has to a very large degree. He has faith in Faith, the character, but also in humanity. He is there to save souls. Primarily, that has been human souls, and he tells Wesley she is human. Moving on to characters, so many great character moments. I enjoyed Lindsay and Lila. The fact that they are concerned about being speciesist to this demon adds some nuance. They are not like Lee, who is the just all-around evil lawyer. They certainly do many evil things, but there is more to them. This is just a hint. The fact that they think about that tells us something. They feel it's important as part of a good working relationship to be aware of differences in the other person from themselves and to respect them. Wesley continues his arc of becoming stronger and more confident. Wesley, several episodes ago, might have more seriously considered the council's offer and wanted to believe they would not harm Angel. In fact, I think he kind of believed them. I mean, he thought it was possible, but he didn't trust them for a second. He made up his mind that he was going to play along, but make sure he protected Angel and Faith because Angel believes in Faith. This is a lot of movement for Wesley, and his view of the council changed. He used to respect it. He felt terrible that he had been fired. He was embarrassed about that. And now he sees that he does more good without them, that he is stronger than them morally. And he has become stronger physically as well. He's become a better fighter. Faith arcs from the belief that she could not change, that the best thing to do was for Angel to kill her or for her to continue killing others, and eventually probably someone would kill her or she would just continue until she self-destructed. She faces Buffy. She's forced to face Buffy, but she does. She tries to apologize. When Buffy says, "I'll beat you to death," she says, "Go ahead." Now, maybe that's not progress, but it is her saying, yeah, I did terrible things to you. And it takes a while, and Angel prompting her before she will leave. So she does not just run from Buffy. And she encounters Wesley. I'm sure that was difficult and, again, kind of forced on her. But she does go back downstairs with him initially. Then she goes up to the roof. She's thinking about escaping, but she stays. She talks with Buffy. They have that confrontation. And ultimately, all of these confrontations, all of these efforts culminate in her making that decision to turn herself in. She is being punished, and she is choosing to withdraw so that she can change. Tremendous arc for her. Angel probably doesn't have as much of a character arc. He does have to deal with his feelings about Buffy, which is tough. And while it isn't great that he yells at Buffy, he does need to say, this is what I'm doing. I am here in LA. Our lives are separate. The message is very loud to Buffy, and they realize they are not in the same place. And when Angel says more than once, this isn't about Buffy, Buffy is nobody, this shows us he has his own mission. It is not about being a spinoff of Buffy. Kind of meta here, because that's true for the show as well, which brings me into world building. This does firmly establish the world of Angel as being different from Buffy. The Buffy fandom wiki says that Joss Whedon made a comment about this confrontation between Buffy and Angel, that the last scene stumped the writers for a long time. And Whedon says, I finally realized when I was working on it that it's because they need to fight. They can't be just like, oh, we're swell pals and we get along. They really are at very different places in their lives, and it's very difficult for them to see each other. So it really helped define how the shows are different, and it ends up with Angel laying into Buffy a little bit and saying, I've got my own show now, and it's different from your show, so get off my show. And the moment I wrote that scene, I got very excited and I said, I get it now. I understand what Angel is, and it's not Buffy. And I feel like the training wheels came off. That makes so much sense to me. And it does articulate that Angel, the show, is not just about Angel's redemption. It is about helping redeem others, or helping them redeem themselves. And one minor world building, well, two. One is we get the answer to whether Faith and Angel ever had sex during the episode Enemies, because when Faith says she screwed Buffy's boyfriend, he says, you and I never actually, which was never entirely clear. And then there was that little problem with the world building where it seems the guy who lives in the apartment did not die, yet Angel was able to burst in during the last episode. But both of these were so good that basically I don't care. Maybe there's some explanation in there somewhere for it, but I don't see it. Moving on to my last category, my rating of the episode. You can probably guess on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best episodes like This Year's Girl and Who Are You from Buffy, the Faith Buffy Body Switch episodes. I also rate this a 10 for these strong plots, engaging characters, in-depth work on themes, pretty much everything about the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Come back next time for Angel Season 1, Episode 20, Warzone, where Angel gets in the middle of a war between vampires and street kids who hunt vampires. And we meet a new character. Music for this episode was written and performed by Robert Newcastle. Buffy and the Art of Story is a production of Spiny Woman, LLC. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved.